Welcome to our marathon reading of Dante's Inferno. I'm glad to see that you've all come, and I'd like to thank you all for coming. And before we start, I'd like to thank a few people for making this possible. Most of all, I'd like to thank Falvey Library for organizing this marathon for us. And in particular, I'd like to thank Michael Foyt, Laura Bang, Joanne Quinn, Regina Duffy. I'd also like to thank the Italian Club and the Department of Romance Languages, as well as ACS and Mary Lou Hill. And okay, so today we're going to start our marathon reading. Some of the rules kind of are, you can just come up here and read. You can read half a canto to a full canto in English or Italian. If you read a huge section in Italian, you should go back and read it in English, okay? We'll come up, anyone can come up from the audience to read, and then if you're in my class or in the ACS classes or doing this for credit, there's a sign-up sheet in the back on a table with, I think, a red or a pink tablecloth. Just please print your name clearly, okay? And those are the basic rules. So I guess we'll start with Canto I. Lo leggo in italiano. Nel mezzo del cammino di nostra vita mi ritrovai per una selva oscura, che la dritta via era smarrita. Hai quanto a dir qual era e cosa dura, esta selva selvaggia, e aspra e forte, che nel pensier rinnova la paura. Tanta è amara, che poco è più morte, ma per trattar del bene che io vi trovai, dirò le cose che io vo scorte. Io non son ben ridir come io vi entrai, tant'era pien di sonno a quel punto, che la veraccia via abbandonai. Ma poi che io fui al piede di un colle giunto, là dove terminava quella valle, che mi aveva di paura il cor compiuto, guardai in alto e vide le sue spalle, vestite già dei raggi del pianeta, che mena dritto altrui per ogni calle. Allor fu la paura, un poco queta, che nel lago del cuor m'era durata, la notte che io passai con tanta pietà, e come quei che con lena affannata, uscito fuor del pelago alla riva, si volge all'acqua perigliosa e guata. Così l'animo mio, che ancor fuggiva, si volse a retro a rimirar lo passo, che non lasciò già mai persona viva. Poiché io posato un poco il corpo lassò, ripresi via per la piaggia deserta, sì che il pie fermo sempre era il più basso, ed ecco, quasi al cominciar dell'erta, una lonza leggera, e presto molto, che di pel macolata era converta, e non mi si partia dinanzi al volto, anzi impedia tanto il mio cammino, che io fui per ritornar più volte volto. Tempo era dal principio del mattino, e il sol montava in su con quelle stelle, che erano con lui quanto l'amor divino, mosse di prima quelle cose belle, sì che a bene sperar m'era cagione, di quella fiera alla gaeta pelle, l'ora del tempo e la dolce stagione, ma non sì che paura non mi disse, la vista che m'apparve di un leone. Questi paria che contra me venisse, con la testa alta e con rabbriosa fame, sì che parea che l'aria ne tremasse. Ed una lupa che di tutto brame sembrava carca nella sua magrezza, e molte gente fe già vivir grame. Questa mi porse tanto di gravezza, con la paura che uscia di sua vista, che io perdei la speranza dell'altezza. E qual è quei che volentieri acquista, e giugne il tempo che perder lo face? che in tutti i suoi pensieri piange, sa triste, tal mi fece la bestia senza pace, che venendomi incontro a poco, mi ripigneva là dove il sol tace, mentre che io rovinava in basso loco, dinanzi agli occhi mi si fu offerto, chi per lungo silenzio parea fuoco. Quando vidi costui nel gran diserto, miserere di me, gridai a lui, qual che tu sii, od ombra, od uomo certo. Risposemi, non uomo, già fui, e li parenti miei furon lombardi, mantuani per patria, ambedue. Nacqui subito, ancor che fosse tardi, e visse a Roma sotto il buono Augusto, nel tempo degli dei falsi e bugiardi. Poeta fui e cantai di quel giusto figliol d'Anchise che venne di Troia, poiché il superbo Ilion fu combusto. Ma tu perché ritorni a tanta noia? Perché non sali il dilettoso monte, che è principio e cagion di tutta gioia? Or sei tu quel Virgilio e quella fonte, che spandi di parlar sì largo fiume, risposi io, lui con vergognosa fronte. Ho degli altri poeti, onore e lume. Vagliami il luogo, studi e il grande amore, che m'ha fatto cercar lo tuo volume. Tu sei lo mio maestro e il mio attore. Tu sei solo colui da cui io tolsi. Io bello stilo che m'ha fatto onore. Vedi la bestia per cui mi volsi, aiutami da lei, famoso saggio, che ella mi fa tremar le vene e i polsi. A te convien tenere alto viaggio, rispose poi che lagrimar mi vide. Se vuoi campar desto loco selvaggio, che questa bestia, per la quale tu grida, non lascia altrui passar per la sua via. Ma tante lo impedisce che lo uccide, e ha natura sì malvagia e ria, che mai non empie la bramosa voglia, e dopo il pasto ha più fame che prima. Molti sono gli animali a cui si ammoglia, e più saranno ancora, infinin che il veltro verrà, che la farà morir con doglia. Questi non ciberà terra né peltro, ma sapienza, amore e virtù, e sua nazione sarà tra veltro e feltro. Di quella umile Italia fia salute, per cui morì la Vergine Camilla, Eraglio, Turno e Niso di Ferute. Questi la caccerar per ogni villa, finché l'avrà rimessa nell'Inferno, là onde l'invidia prima di partila. Andio, per lo tuo, me penso e discerno, che tu mi segui e io sarò tua guida, e trarotti di qui per loco eterno, ove udirai le disperate strida, vedrai gli antichi spiriti dolenti, che alla seconda morte ciascun grida, e vedrai color che son contenti nel fuoco, perché speran di venire quando che sia alle beate genti. Alle quali poi se tu vuoi salire, anima fia a ciò più di me degna, con lei ti lascerò nel mio partire, che quello imperador che là surregna, perché io fu ribellante alla sua legge. Non vuol che in sua città per me si vegna, in tutte parti impera e quivi regge, quivi è la sua città e l'altro seggio. O fece colui cui ivi elegge, e io a lui, poeta, io ti richeggio, per quello Dio che tu non conoscesti, a ciò che io fuga, questo male è peggio, che tu mi meni là dove ho discesi, sì io veggia la porta di San Pietro e color cui tu fai con tanto mesti, allor mi mosse e io li tenni dietro. Okay, so we'll start with the first reading of Canto I in English. So would the first reader come up? Anybody can come up. Or English or Italian. Or actually the first one. Because I read it in English and then she read it in English. Okay.
Midway in our lives' journey, I went astray from the straight road and woke to find myself alone in a dark wood. How shall I say what wood that was? I never saw so drear, so rank, so arduous a wilderness. It is very memory gives a shape to fear. Death could scarce be more bitter than that place. But since it came to good, I will recount all that I found revealed there by God's grace. How I came to it, I cannot rightly say, so drugged and loose with sleep had I become when I first wandered there from the true way. But at the far end of that valley of evil, whose maze had sapped my very heart with fear, I found myself before a little hill, and lifted up my eyes. Its shoulders glowed already with the sweet rays of that planet whose virtue leads men straight on every road, and the shining strengthened me against the fright whose agony had racked the lake of my heart through all the terrors of that piteous night. Just as a swimmer who with his last breath flounders ashore from perilous seas might turn to memorize the wide water of his death, so did I turn, my soul still fugitive from death's surviving image, to stare down that past that none had ever left alive. And there I lay to rest from my heart's race till calm and breath returned to me, then rose and pushed up that dead slope at such a pace, each footfall rose above the last, and lo, almost at the beginning of the rise, I faced a spotted leopard, all tremor and flow and gaudy pelt, and it would not pass, but stood so, blocking my every turn, that time and again I was on the verge of turning back to the wood. This fell at the first widening of the dawn, as the sun was climbing Aries with those stars that rode with him to light the new creation. Thus the holy hour and the sweet season of commemoration did much to arm my fear of that bright murderous beast with their good omen. Yet not so much but what I shook with dread at the sight of a great lion that broke upon me, raging with hunger, its enormous head held high, as if to strike a mortal terror into the very air. And down his track a she-wolf drove upon me, a starved horror, ravening and wasted beyond all belief. She seemed a rack for a rice, gaunt and craving. Oh, many the souls she has brought to endless grief. She brought such heaviness upon my spirit, at sight of her savagery and desperation, I died from every hope of that high summit. And like a miser, eager in acquisition, but desperate in self-reproach, when fortune's wheel turns to the hour of his loss, all tears and attrition, I wavered back, and still the beast pursued, forcing herself against me bit by bit, till I slid back into the sunless wood. And as I fell to my soul's ruin, a presence gathered before me on the discolored air, the figure of one who seemed hoarse from long silence. At sight of him in that friendless waste I cried, "Have pity on me, whatever thing you are, whether shade or living man," and it replied, "Not man, though man I once was, and my blood was Lombard, both my parents Montan. I was born, though late, sub Julio, and bred in Rome under Augustus in the noon of the false and lying gods. I was a poet and sang of old Anchises' noble son, who came to Rome after the burning of Troy. But you, why do you return to these distresses instead of climbing the shining mountain of joy, which is the seat and first cause of man's bliss? And are you then that Virgil and that fountain of purest speech?" My voice grew tremulous. "Glory and light of poets, now may that zeal and love's apprenticeship that I poured out on your heroic verses serve me well. For you are my true master and first author, the sole maker from whom I drew the breath of that sweet style whose measures have brought me honor. See there, immortal sage, the beast I flee. For my soul's salvation I beg you, guard me from her, for she has struck a mortal tremor through me." And he replied, seeing my soul in tears, "He must go by another way who would escape this wilderness, for that mad beast that fleers before you suffers no man to pass. She tracks down all, kills all, and knows no glut but feeding. She grows hungrier than she was. She mates with any beast, and will mate with more before the greyhound comes to hunt her down. He will not feed on lands nor loot, but honor and love and wisdom will make straight his way. He will rise between Feltro and Feltro, and in him shall be the resurrection and new day of that sad Italy for which Nisus died, and Turnus and Euryalus, and that maid Camilla. He shall haunt her through every nation of sick pride, till she is driven back forever to hell, whence envy first released her on the world. Therefore, for your own good, I think it will you follow me, and will be your guide, and lead you forth through an eternal place. There you shall see the ancient spirits tried in endless pain, and hear their lamentation at each bemoans and the second death of souls. Next you shall see upon a burning mountain souls in fire, and yet content in fire, knowing that whensoever it may be, they yet will mount into the blessed choir, to which, if it is still your wish to climb, a worthier spirit shall be sent to guide you. With her shall I leave you, for the King of Time, who reigns on high, forbids me to come there, since living I rebelled against his law. He rules the waters and the land and air, and there holds court his city and his throne. O blessed are they he chooses, and I to him, poet by that God to you unknown, lead me this way. Beyond this present ill and worse to dread, lead me to Peter's gate, and be my guide through the sad halls of hell. And then he said, follow, and he moved ahead in silence, and I followed where he led.
The light was departing. The brown air drew down all the earth's creatures, calling them to rest from their day roving, as I, one man alone, prepared myself to face the double war of the journey and the pity, which memory shall here set down, nor hesitate nor err. O Muses, O high genius, be my aid. O memory, recorder of the vision, here shall your true nobility be displayed. Thus I began, poet, you who must guide me, before you trust me to the arduous passage, look to me and look through me. Can I be worthy? You sang how the father of Silvius, while still in corruptible flesh, won to that other world, crossing with mortal scene the immortal sill. But if the adversary of the evil, weighing his conscience and who and what should issue from him, treated him so well, that cannot seem unfitting to thinking men, since he was chosen father of Mother Rome and of her empire by God's will and token. Both, to speak strictly, were founded and foreknown as the established seat of holiness for the successors of great Peter's throne. In that quest which your verses celebrate, he learned those mysteries from which arose his victory and Rome's apostolate. There later came the chosen vessel, Paul, bearing the confirmation of that faith which is the one true door to life eternal. But I, how should I dare? By whose permission? I am not Aeneas, I am not Paul. Who could believe me worthy of the vision? How then may I presume to this high quest, and not fear my own brashness? You are wise, and will grasp what my poor words can but suggest. As one who unwills what he will stay strong purposes with feeble second thoughts until he speaks, all is first steal away. So I hung back and balked on that dim coast, till thinking had worn out my enterprise, so stout at starting and so early lost. I understand from your words and the look in your eyes that shadow of magnificent answered me. Your soul is sunken in that cowardice that bears down many men, turning their course and resolution by imagined perils, as his own shadow turns the frightened horse. To free you of this dread, I will tell you all of why I came to you and what I heard when first I pitied you. I was a soul among the souls of limbo, when a lady so blessed and so beautiful, I prayed her to order and command my will, called to me. Her eyes were kindled from the lamps of heaven. Her voice reached through me, tender, sweet, and low, an angel's voice, a music of its own. O gracious Mantuan, whose melodies live in the earth's memory and shall live on till the last motion ceases in the skies, my dearest friends and fortune's foe has strayed on to a friendless shore and stands beset by such distresses that he turns afraid from the true way, and the news of him in heaven rumors my dread he is already lost. I come, afraid that I am too late risen. Fly to him, and with your high counsel pity, and with whatever need be for his good and soul's salvation, help me and solace me. It is I, Beatrice, who send you to him. I come from the blessed height for which I yearn. Love called me here. When amid seraphim I stand against before my Lord, your praises shall sound in heaven. She paused, and I began. O Lady of that only grace that raises feeble mankind within its mortal cycle above all other works God's will has placed within the heaven of the smallest circle. So welcome is your command that to my sense, where I already fulfilled, it would yet seem tardy. I understand and am all obedience. But tell me how you dare to venture thus so far from the wide heaven of your joy, to which your thoughts yearn back from this abyss. Since what you asked, she answered me, probes near the root of all, I will say briefly only how I have come through hell's pit without fear. Know then, O waiting and compassionate soul, that it is to fear which has the power to harm, and nothing else is fearful even in hell. I am so made by God's all-seeing mercy, your anguish does not touch me, and the flame of this great burning has no power upon me. There is a lady in heaven, so concerned for him I send you to, for her sake the district decree is broken. She has turned and called Lucia to her wish and mercy, saying, Thy faithful one is sorely pressed in his distresses, I commend him to thee. Lucia, the soul of light and foe of all cruelty, rose and came to me at once, where I was sitting with the ancient Rachel, saying to me, Beatrice, true praise of God, why dost thou not help him who loved thee so, that for thy sake he left the vulgar crowd? Dost thou not hear his cries? Canst thou not see the death he wrestles with beside that river no ocean can surpass for rage and fury? No soul of earth was ever as rapt to seek its good or flee its injury as I was, when I heard my sweet Lucia speak, to descend from heaven and my blessed seat to you, laying my trust in that high speech that honors you and all who honored it. She spoke and turned away to hide a tear that, shining, urged me faster. So I came and freed you from the beast that drove you there, blocking the near way to the heavenly height. And now what ails you? Why do you lag? Why this heart-sick hesitation and pale fright, when three such blessed ladies lean from heaven in their concern for you, and my own pledge of the great good that waits you have been given? As flowerlets drooped and puckered in the night, turned up to the returning sun and spread their petal wide on this new warmth and light, just so my wilted spirits rose again, and such a heat of zeal surged through my veins that I was born anew. Thus I began, blessed by that lady of infinite pity, and blessed by thy taxed and courteous spirit that came so promptly on the world she gave thee. Thy words have moved my heart to its first purpose, my guide, my Lord, my Master. Now lead on. One will shall serve the two of us in this. He turned when I had spoken, and at his back I entered on that hard and perilous track.
Per me si va nella città dolente, per me si va nell'eterno dolore, per me si va tra la perduta gente. Giustizia mosse il mio alto fattore, fecemi la divina potestate, la somma sapienza e il primo amore. Dinanzi a me non fuor cose create, se non eterne, e io eterno duro. Lasciate ogni speranza voi ch'intrate. Queste parole di colore oscuro vid'io scritte al sommo d'una porta, perciò maestro il senso l'orme duro, ed egli a me come persona accorta. Qui si convien lasciare ogni sospetto, ogni viltà convien che qui sia morta. Noi siamo venuti al loco, ovvi ti ho detto, che tu vedrai le genti dolorose, ch'hanno perduto il ben dell'intelletto, e poi che la sua mano alla mia pose, con lieto volto ond'io mi confortai, mi mise dentro alle segrete cose. Quivi sospiri, pianti e alti guai risonavan per l'aere senza stelle. Perciò al cominciar nel lagrimai diverse lingue orribili favole, parole di dolore, accenti d'ira, voci alte e fioche, e suon di man con elle. Facevano un tumulto il qual s'aggira, sempre in quell'aura senza tempo tinta, come l'arena quando turbo spira, e io c'avea d'error la testa cinta. Dissi, maestro, che è quel chiodo? E che gente che par nel duol si vinta? Ed egli a me, questo misero modo, tegno l'anime triste di colore, che viser senza infamia e senza lodo. Mischiate sono a quel cattivo corro degli angeli che non furon ribelli, ne fur fedeli a Dio, ma perse fuore, cancianli in ciel per non esser men belli. Nello profondo inferno li riceve, che alcuna gloria il re avrebber d'elli. E io, maestro, che è tanto greve, allor che lamentar li fa sì forte, rispose, dicerolti molto breve, questi non hanno speranza di morte, e la lor cieca vita è tanto bassa, che invidiosi son d'ogni altra sorte. Fama di loro il mondo esser non lassa, misericordia e giustizia disdegna. Non rigioniam di lor, ma guarda e passa. E io che riguardai vidi una insegna, che girando correva tanto rata, che d'ogni posa mi parea indegna, e dietro le vegna sì lunga trata di gente ch'io non avrei creduto, che morte tanta n'avesse disfatta. Poscia ch'io vebbi alcun riconosciuto, vidi e conobbi l'ombra di colui, che fece per viltade il gran rifiuto. Incontanente intesi, e certo fui, che questa era la setta di cattivi, a Dio spiacenti e a nemici sui. Questi sciaurati, che mai non fur vivi, erano ignudi e stimolati molto, da mosconi e da vespe che eran ivi, e le rigiavan lor di sangue il volto, che mischiato di lagrime a lor piedi, da fastidiosi vermi era ricolto, e poi che riguardar oltre mi diedi, vidi genti alla riva d'un gran fiume. Perciò dissi, maestro, or mi concedi, chi sappia quali sono e qual costume le fa di trapassar parer sì pronte, come discerno per lo fioco lume, ed egli a me, le cose ti fia conte, quando noi fermerem i nostri passi sulla trista riviera d'Acheronte. Allor con gli occhi vergognosi e bassi, temendo nel mio dir li fosse grave, infino al fiume del parlar mi trassi. Ed ecco verso noi venir per nave un vecchio, bianco per antico pelo, gridando, guai a voi, anime prave, non insperate mai veder lo cielo. I vegno per menarvi all'altra riva, nelle tenebre eterne, in caldo e in gelo, e tu che secosti anima viva, partiti da cotesti che son morti, ma poi che vide ciò non mi partiva, disse, per altra via, per altri porti, verrai a paggia non qui per passare, più lieve legno convien che ti porti, il duca lui, Caron non ti crusciare. Volsi così colla dove si puote, ciò che si vuole e più non dimandare. Quinci fuor quete le lanose gote, al nocchier che la livida palude, che intorno agli occhi avea di fiamme rotte, ma quell'anime che eran lasse e nude, cangiar colore e dibattero i denti, ratto, che intesser le parole crude. Bestemmiavano Dio e lor parenti, l'umana specie, il loco, il tempo e il seme, di lor semenza e di lor nascimenti. Poi si ritrasser tutte quante insieme, forte piangendo alla riva malvagia, cantende casciun uom che Dio non teme, caron demonio con occhi di bragia. Loro accennando tutte le raccoglie, batte col remo qualcun s'adagia. Come d'autunno si levan le foglie, l'una appresso dell'altra, finché il ramo vede alla terra tutte le sue spoglie, similmente il mal seme d'Adamo, gitansi di quel lito ad una, perceni come augel per suo richiame. Così sen vanno su per l'onda bruna, e avanti che sien di là discese. Anche di qua nuova schiera sauna, figliuol mio, disse il maestro cortese, quelli che muoion nell'ira di Dio, tutti convegnon chi d'ogni paese, e pronti sono a trapassar lo rio, che la divina giustizia li sprona, sì che la tema si volve di disio. Quinci non passa mai anima buona, e però, se Caron di te si lagna, ben può sapere omai che il suo dir suona. Finito questo, la buia campagna tremò sì forte, che dello spavento la mente di sudore ancor mi bagna. La terra lagrimosa diede vento, che balleno una luce vermiglia, la qual mi vinse ciascun sentimento, e cadi con l'uom cui sono piglia.
Just wait a minute. We're gonna fix the projector.
Since she read it in Italian, you're gonna reread it.
Okay.
I'm the way.
Starting from here.
Yeah, I'm the way. And then all the way to the end. Like down.
Oh, to that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just be careful. Should I wait for the where they go? Yeah. Okay. Okay. I am the way into the city of woe. I am the way to a forsaken people. I am the way into eternal sorrow. Sacred justice moved my architect. I was raised here by divine omnipotence, primordial love, and ultimate intellect. Only those elements time cannot wear were made before me, and beyond time I stand. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. These mysteries I read cut into stone above a gate. And turning, I said, Master, what is the meaning of this harsh inscription? And then he, as initiate to novice, here must you put by all division of spirit, and gather your soul against all cowardice. This is the place I told you to expect. Here you shall pass among the fallen people, souls who have lost the good of intellect.
So saying, he put forth his hand on me, and with a gentle and encouraging smile, he led me through the gate of mystery. Here sighs and cries and wails coiled and recoiled on the starless air, spilling my souls to tears. A confusion of tongues and monstrous accents toiled, in pain and anger, voices hoarse and shrill, and sounds of blows, all intermingled, raised tumult and pandemonium that still whirls in the air fever dirty with it as if a whirlwind sucked at sand. And I, holding my head in horror, cried, "Sweet Spirit, what souls are these who run through this black haze?" And he to me, "These are the nearly soulless who live concluded neither blame nor praise. They are mixed here with that despicable corpse of angels, who were neither for God nor Satan, but only for themselves. The high Creator scourged them from heaven, for its perfect beauty in hell will not receive them, since the wicked might feel some glory over them. And I, Master, what gnaws at them so hideously? Their lamentation stuns the very air. They have no hope of death," he answered me, "and in their blind and unattaining state, their miserable lives have sunk so low that they must envy every other fate. No word of them survives the living season. Mercy and justice deny them even a name. Let us not speak of them. Look and pass on." I saw a banner there upon the mist. Circling and circling, it seemed to scorn all pause. So it ran on, and still behind it pressed a never-ending rout of souls in pain. I had not thought death had undone so many as passed before me in that mournful train. And some I knew among them. Last of all, I recognized the shadow of that soul who, in his cowardice, made the great denial. At once I understood for certain. These were that of the retrograde and faithless crew, hateful to God and to its enemies. These wretches, never born and never dead, ran naked in a swarm of wasps and hornets that goaded them the more they fled, and made their faces stream with bloody gouts of pus and tears that dribbled to their feet, to be swallowed there by loathsome worms and maggots. Then looking onward, I made out a throng assembled on the beach of a wide river, whereupon I turned to him and said, "Master, I long to know what souls these are, and what strange usage makes them as eager to cross as they seem to be in this afflicted light." At which the sage said, "All this shall be made known to you when we stand on the joyless beach of Acheron." And I cast down my eyes, sensing a reprimand in what he said, and so walked at his side in silence and ashamed until we came through the dead cavern to that sunless tide. There, steering towards us in the ancient ferry, came an old man with a white bush of hair, bellowing, "Woe to you depraved souls! Bury here and forever all hope of paradise. I come to lead you to the other shore, into eternal dark, into fire and ice. And to you who are living yet, I say, be gone from those who are dead." But when he saw me stand against his violence, he began again. "By other windings and by other steerage shall you cross to the other shore. Not here, not here. A lighter craft than mine must give you passage." And my guide to him, "Charon, bite your spleen. This has been willed where what is willed must be, and is not yours to ask what it may mean." The steersman of that marsh of ruined souls, who wore a wheel of flame around each eyes, stifled the rage that shook his woolly jowls. But those unmanned and naked spirits there turned pale with fear, and their teeth began to chatter at the sound of his crude bellow. In despair, they blasphemed God, their parents, their time on earth, the race of Adam, and the day and the hour and the place and the seed and the womb that gave them birth. But all together they drew to that grim shore, where all must come who lose the fear of God. Weeping and cursing they come for evermore. The demon Charon, with eyes burning like coals, herds them in, and with a whistling oar flails on the staggers to his wake of souls. As leaves in autumn loosen and stream down until the branches stand bare above its tatters, spread on the rustling ground, so one by one the evil seed of Adam, in its fall, cast themselves at his signal from the shore, and streamed away like birds who hear their call. So they are gone over that shadowy water, and always before they reach the other shore, a new noise stirs on this, and new throngs gather. "My son," the courteous master said to me, "all who die in the shadow of God's wrath converge to this from every clime and country. And all pass over eagerly, for here divine justice transforms and spurs them, so their dread turns wish. They yearn for what they fear. No soul in grace comes ever to this crossing. Therefore, if Charon rages at your presence, you will understand the reasoning for his cursing." When he had spoken, all the twilight country shook so violently. The terror of it bathes me with even sweat, even in memory. The tear-soaked ground gave out a sigh of wind that spewed itself in flame on a red sky, and all my shattered senses left me. Blind, like one whom sleep comes over in a swoon, I stumbled into darkness and went down.
A monstrous clap of thunder broke apart. The swoon had stuffed my head. Like one awakened by violent hands, I leaped up with a start. And having risen, rested, and renewed, I studied out the landmarks of the gloom to find my bearings there as best I could. And I found I stood on the very brink of the valley called the Dolorous Abyss, the desolate chasm where rolls of thunder of hell's eternal cry. So depthless, deep, and nebulous and dim, that stare as I might into its frightful pit, it gave me back no feature and no bottom. Death pale, the poet spoke. Now let us go into the blind world, waiting here below us. I will lead the way, and you will follow. And I, sick with alarm at his new pallor, cried out, how can I go this way, when you who are my strength in doubt turn pale with terror? And he, the pain of these below us here, drains the color from my face for pity, and leaves this pallor you mistake for fear. Now let us go, for a long road awaits us. So he entered, and so he led me into the first circle and ledge of the abyss. No tortured wailing rose to greet us here, but sounds of sighing rose from every side, sending a tremor through the timeless air. A grief breathed out of untormented sadness, the passive state of those who dwelled apart. Men, women, children, a dim and endless congress. And the master said to me, do you not question what souls these are that suffer here before you? I wish you to know, before you travel on, that these were sinless, and still their merits fail, for they lacked baptism's grace, which is the door of the true faith you were born to. Their birth fell before the age of the Christian mysteries, and so they did not worship God's Trinity in fullest duty. I am one of these. For such defects we lost, though spared the fire and suffering hell in one affliction only, that without hope we live on in desire. I thought how many worthy souls there were suspended in that limbo, and a weight closed on my heart for what the noblest suffer. Instruct me, Master, and most noble Sir. I prayed him then, better to understand the perfect creed that conquers every error. Has any, by his own or another's merit, gone ever from this place to blessedness? He sensed my inner question and answered it. I was still new to this estate of tears when a mighty one descended here among us, crowned with the sign of his victorious years. He took from us the shade of our first parent, of Abel his pure son, of ancient Noah, of Moses, the bringer of law, the obedient. Father Abraham, David the king, Israel and his father and his children, Rachel the holy vessel of his blessing, and many more he chose for elevation among the elect. And before these, you must know, no human soul has ever won salvation. We had not paused as he spoke, but held our road, and passed meanwhile beyond a press of souls, crowded about like trees in a thick wood. We had not traveled far from where I woke, when I made out a radiance before us, and struck away a hemisphere of dark. We were still some distance back in the long night, yet near enough that I half saw, half sensed, what quality of souls lived in that light. O ornament of wisdom and of art, what souls are these whose merit lights their way even in hell? What joy sets them apart? And he to me, the signature of honor they left on earth is recognized in heaven, and wins them ease in hell out of God's favor. And as he woke, a voice rang in the air, honor the Prince of Poets, the soul and glory that went from us returns. He is here, he is here. The cries ceased, and the echo passed from hearing. I saw 4 mighty presences come towards us with neither joy nor sorrow in their bearing. Note well, my master said as they came on, that souls that lead us the rest with sword in hand, as if he were their captain and champion. It is Homer, singing master of the earth. Next after him is Horace, the satirist. Ovid is third, and Lucan is the fourth. Since all of these have part in the high name the voice proclaimed, calling me Prince of Poets, the honor that they do me honors them. So I saw gathered at the edge of light the masters that highest school whose song outsoars all others like an eagle's flight. And after they had talked together a while, they turned and welcomed me most graciously, at which I saw my approving master smile. And they honored me far beyond courtesy, for they included me in their own number, making me sixth in that high company. So we moved toward the light, and as we passed, we spoke of things as well omitted here as it was sweet to touch on there. At last we reached the base of a great citadel, circled by 7 towering battlements, and a sweet brook flowing round them all. This we passed over as if it were firm ground. Through 7 gates I entered with those sages, and came to a green meadow blooming round. There, with solemn and majestic poise, stood many people gathered in the light, speaking infrequently and with muted voice. Past that enameled green, we 6 withdrew into a luminous and open height, from which each soul among them stood in view. And there, directly before me on the green, the master souls of time were shown to me. I glory in the glory I have seen. Electra stood in a great company. Among them I saw Hector and Aeneas, and Caesar in armor with his falcon's eye. I saw Camilla and the Queen Amazon across the field. I saw the Latin king seated there with his daughter by his throne, and the good Brutus who overthrew the Tarquin, Lucrenza, Julia, Marcia, and Cornelia, and by himself the Saladin. In raising my eyes a little, I saw on high Aristotle, the master of those who know, ringed by the great souls of philosophy. All wait upon him for their honor and his. I saw Socrates and Pluto at his side, before all others there. Democritus, who ascribed the world to chance, Diogenes, and with him there Talus, Anaxagoras, Zeno, Heraclitus, and Empedocles. And I saw the wise collector and analyst, Dioscorides. I saw Orpheus there, Tully, Linus, Seneca, the moralist, Elucid, the geometer, and Ptolemy, Hippocrates, Galen, Aventia, and Averroes of the great commentary. I cannot count so much nobility. My longer theme pursues me so that often the word falls short of the reality. The company of 6 is reduced by 4. My master leads me by another road, away from that serenity to the roar and trembling air of hell. I pass from light into the kingdom of eternal night.
This is the one we read in class.
We're so like that. Really nice. This is the one we read in class.
Okay. So we went down to the second ledge alone, a smaller circle of so much greater pain. The voice of the damned rose in a bestial moan. There Minos sits, grinning, grotesque and hale. He examines each lost soul as it arrives and delivers his verdict with his coaling tale. That is to say, when the ill-fated soul appears before him, it confesses all, and that grim sorter of the dark and foul decides which place in hell shall be its end, then wraps its twitching tail about himself, one coil for each degree it must ascend. The soul descends and others take its place, each crowds in its turn to judgment, each confesses, each hears its doom and falls away through space. O you who come into this camp of woe, cried Minos when he saw me turn away,
without awaiting his judgment. Watch where you go once you have entered here, and to whom you turn. Do not be misled by that wide and easy passage, and my guide to him. That is not your concern. It is his fate to enter every door. This has been willed where what is willed must be, and is not yours to question. Say no more. Now the choir of anguish, like a wound, strikes through the tortured air. Now I have come to hell's full lamentation, sound beyond sound. I came to a place stripped bare of every light, and roaring on the naked dark like seas, racked by a war of winds. Their hellish flight of storm and counterstorm through time foregone sweeps the souls of the damned before its charge. Whirling and battering, it drives them on, and when they pass the ruined gap of hell through which we had come, their shrieks begin anew. There they blaspheme the power of God eternal, and this I learned was the never-ending fight of those who sinned in the flesh, the carnal and lusty who betrayed reason to their appetite. As the wings of wintering starlings bear them on in their great wheeling flights, just so the blast wearies these evil souls through time foregone. Here, there, up, down, they whirl and, whirling, strain with never a hope of hope to comfort them, not of release, but even of less pain. As cranes go over sounding their harsh cry, leaving the long streak of their flight in air, so come these spirits, wailing as they fly. And watching their shadows lashed by wind, I cried, Master, what souls are these the very air lashes with its black whips from side to side? The first of these whose history you would know, he answered me, was the Empress of many tongues. Mad sensuality corrupted her, so that to hide the guilt of her debauchery, she licensed all depravity alike, and lust and law were one in her decree. She is Semiramis, of whom the tale is told, how she married Ninus and succeeded him to the throne of that wide land the sultans hold. The other is Dido, faithless to the ashes of Sychaeus. She killed herself for love. The next whom the eternal tempest lashes is sense-drugged Cleopatra. See Helen there, from whom such ill arose, and great Achilles, who fought at last with love in the house of prayer. In Paris, said Tristan, as they whirled above, he pointed out more than 1,000 shades of those torn from the mortal life by love. I stood there while my teacher one by one named the great knights and ladies of dim time, and I was swept by pity and confusion. At last I spoke. Poet, I should be glad to speak a word with those two swept together so lightly on the wind and still so sad. And he to me, watch them. When next they pass, call to them in the name of love that drives and damns them here. In that name they will pause. Thus, as soon as the wind in its wild course brought them around, I called, O wearied souls, if none forbid it, pause and speak to us. As mating doves that love calls to their nest, glide through the air with motionless raised wings, borne by the sweet desire that fills each breast. Just so those spirits turn on the torn sky, from the band where Dido whirls across the air, such was the power of pity in my cry. O living creature, gracious, kind, and good, going this pilgrimage through the sick night, visiting us who stained the earth with blood, where the King of Time, our friend, we would pray his peace on you who have pitied us. As long as the wind will let us pause, ask us what you please. The town where I was born lies by the shore, where the Po descends into its ocean's rest, with its attendant streams in one long murmur. Love, which in gentlest hearts will soonest bloom, seize my lover with passion for that sweet body from which I was torn unshriven to my doom. Love, which permits no loved one not to love, took me so strongly with delight in him, that we are one in hell as we were above. Love led us to one death. In the depths of hell, Cain awaits for him who took our lives. This was the piteous tale they stopped to tell. And when I had heard those world-offended lovers, I bowed my head. At last the poet spoke. What painful thoughts are these your lower brow covers? When at length I answered, I began, alas, what sweetest thoughts, what green and young desire led these two lovers to this story pass? Then, turning to those spirits once again, I said, Francesco, what you suffer here melts me to tears of pity and of pain. But tell me, in the time of your sweet sighs, by what appearances found love the way to lure you to this perilous paradise? and she, the double grief of a lost bliss, is to recall its happy hour in pain. Your God and teacher knows the truth of this. But if there is indeed a soul in hell to ask of the beginning of our love, out of this pity I will weep and tell. On a day for dalliance we read the rhyme of Lancelot, how love had mastered him. We were alone with innocence and dim time. Pause after pause the high old story drew our eyes together while we blushed and paled. But it was one soft passage overthrew our caution and our hearts. For when we read how her fond smile was kissed by such a lover, he is one with me alive and dead, breathed on my lips from the tremor of his kiss. That book and he who wrote it was a pander. That day we read no further. As she said this, the other spirit who stood by her wept so piteously, I felt my senses reel and faint away with anguish. I was swept by such a swoon as death is, and I fell as a corpse might fall to the dead floor of hell.
Al tornare della mente, che si chiuse dinanzi alla pietà di due cognati, che di trestizia tutto mi confuse, nuovi tormenti e nuovi tormentati mi veggio intorno, come ch'io mi mova e ch'io mi volga e come ch'io guati. Io sono al terzo cerchio della piova e terra maledetta, fredda e greve, regola e qualità mai non l'innova. Grandine grossa, acqua tinta e neve per l'aere tenebroso si riversa, pute la terra che questo riceve. Cerbero, fiera crudele diversa, con tre gole caninamente latra, sovra la gente che quivi è sommersa. Gli occhi a vermigli, la barba unta e atra, e il ventre largo, e unghiate le mani, graffia gli spirti, e di scuoia e di squatra. Urlar li fa la pioggia come cani, dell'un dei lati fanno all'altro schermo, volgonsi spesso i miseri profani. Quando ci scorse Cerbero, il gran vermo, le bocche aperse e mostrocci le sanne, non avea membro che tenesse fermo. E il duca mio distese le sue spanne, prese la terra e con piene le pugna la gittò dentro le bramose canne. Qual è quel cane che abbaiando agogna e si racqueta poi per il pasto morde, che solo a divorarlo intende e pugna? Cotai si fecer quelle facce lorde del domonio Cerbero, che introna l'anime sì, ch'esser vorrebber sorde. Noi passavam su per l'ombre che adona la greve pioggia e ponavam le piante sovra lor vanità che par persona. Elle giaceano per terra tutte quante, forduna che a sedersi levò ratto che la ci vide passarsi davante. O tu, che sei per questo inferno tratto, mi disse, riconoscimi, se sai, tu fosti, prima che io disfatto, fatto. E io a lui, l'angoscia che tu hai, forse ti tira fuor della mia mente, sì che non par chi ti vedessi mai. Ma dimmi, chi tu sei, che in sì dolente loco s'è messo, hai fatto sì pena, che s'altra in maggio nulla e si spiacente. Ed egli a me, la tua città, che è piena d'invidia, sì che già trabocca il sacco, seco mi tenne in la vita serena. Voi cittadini mi chiamaste ciacco, per la dannosa colpa della gola, come tu vedi, alla pioggia io mi fiacco. Ed io anima trista non son sola, che tutte queste a simil pena stanno per simil colpa, e più non fe parola. Io le risposi, ciacco, il tuo affanno mi pesa sì, che lagrimar mi invita. Ma dimmi, se tu sai, a che verranno i cittadini della città partita, s'alcun v'è giusto? E dimmi la cagion, perché l'hai tanta discordia assalita. E quelli a me, dopo lunga tencione, verranno al sangue e la parte selvaggia caccerà l'altra con molta offensione. Poi appresso convien che questa caggia infra tre soli e che l'altra sormonti con la forza di tal che teste piaggia. Alte terrà lungo tempo le fronti, tenendo l'altra sotto gravi pesi, come chi di ciò pianga o che no onti. giusti son due, e non vi sono intesi, superbia, invidia e avarizia sono, le tre faville c'hanno i cuori accesi. Qui puose fine al lagrimabil suono, ed io a lui, ancor vo che m'insegni e che di più parlar mi facci dono. Farinate il tegliaio, che forsi degni Jacopo Rusticucci, Arrigo il Mosca, e gli altri che ben far puoser gli ingegni, dimmi ove sono e che fa io che li conosca, che gran disio mi stringe di sapere se il ciel li addolcia o l'inferno li attosca. E quelli, ei son tra l'anime più nere, diverse colpe giù li grava al fondo, se tanto scendi, là li potrai vedere, ma quando tu sarai nel dolce mondo, priegoti, che la mente altrui mi rechi, più non dico e più non ti rispondo. Di diritti occhi torse allora in biechi, guardommi un poco e poi, chinò la testa, cadde con essa a par degli altri ciechi. E il duca disse a me, più non si desta di qua dal suon dell'angelica tromba, quando verrà la nemica podestà. Ciascuno rivedrà la triste tomba, ripeglierà sua carne e sua figura, udirà quel chi l'Eterno rimbomba. Sì, trapassammo per sozza mistura dell'ombre e della pioggia, passi lenti, toccando un poco la vita futura, perché io dissi, maestro, esti tormenti cresceran e dopo la gran sentenza o fiere minori o saran sì cocenti? Ed egli a me, ritorna a tua scienza, che vuol quanto la cosa è più perfetta, più senta il bene e così la doglienza. Tutta questa gente maladetta in vera perfezion giammai non vada, di là più che di questa essere aspetta. Noi aggirammo a tondo quella strada, parlando più assai ch'io non ridico, venimmo al punto dove si digrada, e qui vi trovammo Pluto, il gran nemico.